Hello, my name is Miles Lewis, Director of the Valley Art Studio School, professional painter and teacher in the San Fernando Valley. So today we're going to address photographic painting techniques. So painting from photography is especially useful for those things which are hard to hold, or those things which are best captured photographically. So a good way to start is by gridding off your subject. I have a digital image and a canvas of approximately the same ratio of length to width. And I'm going to begin by having the picture, which is about 10 3/4 inches, which means about 5 here. Draw a line across. So now I'm finding the halves of the length and width of the canvas. So 9 for 18 in length and 7 for 14 in width. And now I'm drawing lines across. Depending on how much you need to copy the face or how much difficulty you are having with proportion, you can keep subdividing so that you'd break this rectangle into halves, this rectangle into halves, and so forth, and do the same here. But the basic principle remains the same, in that for each quadrant, you're going to focus and copy. So it is much easier with this grid work to check, for example, where his eye is resting. Right here, right? And see how much space it is occupying in the width of that quadrant. I can say that it's about 1/4 of that entire quadrant. Start drawing in the features. And finding them in the same way within that quadrant. For correction, you're able to go quadrant to quadrant, checking to see if the shape you're creating is fitting within each space. So for example, this curve that I created, this sort of guideline, I find that I can actually break down because it occupies very clearly a smaller space of that entire quadrant. I'm actually going to move to the easel just for comfort of handling. And I've taped the portrait of my brother up on top. So I'm going to keep drawing until I bring it to a finish that is good enough to hold paint. I'm just going to use primary colors in acrylic, any other color such as black, white, or earth tones like brown or ochre can be added over in washes, but the primary colors are a good way to get all of your basic colorations down, and also to get your basic neutralizations down. So if you're working with a fairly neutral green background, you can do most all of that with primary color. Same case with any neutrals you have in the face. Certainly any bright colors you want to use your primaries. Black and white, depending on how photographic you want it to look, can be added in the course of painting and also after, in the case of acrylics, as a black or white wash. While you're painting, especially in large washes, you don't want to continuously paint over the same area because you'll tend to subtract paint, and it doesn't cease to be wet until about 30 minutes in. So after I've washed in green and red, I'm allowing these larger areas to dry while I'm working on border lines or contour lines that I can work with once everything has dried. So now, with a pretty successful block-in of color and value, I'm going to start touching in colors as I see them. Do not be worried if your paint is not exactly of the color of the photograph because you can develop up to that point. You'll be constantly correcting through these small marks. Tends to happen that if you're over-focused on one area, you'll lose track of another, and the entire accuracy, that is, the entire harmony of the picture, will be lost. Now for the eyes, for example, I can begin with a straight white, but I can also mix in order to create a blue-white or a yellow-white or whatever is appropriate to the atmosphere, what temperature your photograph is, whether it is warmer or cooler, and that will affect the warmth of the white that you put in the eye. For photography paint techniques, this about covers the basics, where you can use smaller dry strokes for finding the difference between small areas of color, as you have in a photograph, large wet wash strokes, which allow you to slam the picture on the canvas and to create warmth and coolness depending on the temperature of your photograph.